There's a lie that's buried so deep in the foundation of modern medicine that most of us don't even see it anymore. It's this one single flawed idea that has completely warped how we see health, how our doctors judge us, and it's built a multi-billion-dollar industry right on the back of our own struggles. But this isn't just some simple mistake. Oh no, this is the story of how our health got hijacked, and it all starts with a simple question that's impossible to answer. Okay, so just look at these two people. On one side, you've got a professional athlete, a body that's practically a machine, built through years of insane discipline, all dense muscle, very little fat. And on the other side, well, you've got a body that tells a much different story, a more sedentary one. Now, on the surface, it seems pretty clear who's healthy and who isn't, right? But our medical system, it's not really looking at the surface. It's looking at a number. And according to that number, which one of these two is medically, clinically obese? And here's the crazy part. The answer makes absolutely no sense. According to the standard, the one your doctor uses, your insurance company uses, the government itself uses, the diagnosis is exactly the same. Both of them, the elite athlete and the person on the couch, they get put in the very same category. They get the same label, the same warning, and really the same prescription for failure. Now look, this isn't some weird fluke. This is the system working exactly as it was designed to, and it forces us to ask a really fundamental question. How is that even possible? How can the one metric at the very heart of our healthcare be so obviously, so demonstrably wrong? Well, the answer isn't in our biology, it's in history. And it's a story that starts almost 200 years ago, with a guy who wasn't even trying to measure health in the first place. Okay, so let's get into it. Part 1, a 200-year-old error. This is where our investigation really begins, with what you could call the original sin. We're going to look at the origin of this deeply flawed measurement and how a simple formula made for something totally different became the single most powerful weapon in the war on our own bodies. So picture this. The year is 1832, and there's this guy, Adolphe Quetelet. Now, he's not a doctor, he's an astronomer, and he's not obsessed with the human body, he's obsessed with human data. He's trying to find a statistical average man for things like government censuses. So he comes up with this kind of crude formula, weight divided by height squared. And for almost 140 years, it's basically just a footnote in a history book. But then, in 1972, a physiologist named Enkel Keys has a problem. The insurance industry needs a super cheap, super fast way to calculate risk and predict when people might die. So he digs back into the archives, pulls out this forgotten equation, gives it a new scientific-sounding name, the body mass index, and just like that, a statistical tool for studying populations was weaponized into a diagnostic tool for you and me. But here's the real kicker. The guy who invented the formula, he knew it was dangerous. Adolphe Quetelet flat out warned people that his index was just a blunt instrument for looking at populations, a statistical curiosity. He said it should never, ever be used to evaluate an individual person. The very thing it's used for, billions of times a day in clinics all over the world, is the one thing he begged people not to do with it. It's not just a misuse, it's a total betrayal of what he intended. So what we have is, well, at its core, a dangerously stupid tool. It's completely blind. It has no idea how to tell the difference between the dense muscle of an athlete and the unhealthy fat of someone with diabetes. It doesn't account for the weight of your own skeleton. And this is the most critical part. It has zero concept of where that weight is. It doesn't know about the really dangerous visceral fat that can suffocate your organs, a scary condition doctors call TOFI, thin outside, fat inside. The BMI just gives you one simple number that tells you absolutely nothing about what's actually going on with your metabolic health. It's like a compass that just spins and spins, pointing nowhere. But this flawed measurement, that was only the first part of the deception. Because underneath it, there's a much more personal and honestly, a much crueler accusation. It's the willpower myth. That simple, brutal idea we've all heard a million times. Just eat less and move more. We're told it's a story about character, about discipline. But the truth is, it's not about character at all. It's about biology. And to really see this myth for what it is, we've got to look at the story of a man named Danny Kael. He was on this huge TV show, and he became the ultimate symbol of willpower. But his very public success story would turn into a private tragedy. And in the process, it would expose the massive lie at the very heart of the entire weight loss industry. So back in 2009 on national TV, Danny Cahill did what looked like the impossible. He lost a staggering 239 pounds in just 7 months. I mean, he was the living, breathing proof of the willpower myth. He was proof that if you just had enough grit, enough determination, you could conquer your own body. He was the system's greatest success story. But what happened after the cameras turned off? That's what would reveal the system's darkest secret. 6 years went by, and then scientists from the National Institutes of Health, they tracked him down. And what they found was just devastating. Danny had gained back over 100 pounds. Now, to the world, that looked like a failure of willpower. But the scientists, they saw something totally different. His body was in a state of what you could call permanent metabolic collapse. His resting metabolism had slowed down so much that he was burning 800 fewer calories every single day than another man of his exact same size. Think about that. To just maintain his weight, he would have to eat one entire meal less every single day for the rest of his life. This wasn't a moral failure. It was a biological punishment. What happened to Danny is actually a primal survival mechanism. It's called metabolic adaptation. See, when his body lost all that weight so fast, it didn't think, oh great, we won. It thought it was starving. It registered a famine. And so it hit the panic button. It activated every single defense mechanism that's been hardwired into our DNA from thousands of years of survival. It slammed the brakes on his metabolism to hold on to every last calorie. It flooded his brain with hunger hormones, basically screaming at him to go find food. He wasn't fighting his willpower. He was fighting his own biology's desperate, all-out attempt to keep him alive. So the first enemy is actually inside us. Our own biology is programmed to fight back against our efforts. But that's only half the battle, because while our bodies are fighting a defensive war from the inside, there is a much more deliberate, a much more intelligent enemy fighting an offensive war from the outside. Our entire food environment, it has been engineered to make us fail. So now our story takes a turn to the 1980s. Big Tobacco, this absolute giant of a corporate monster, was facing a huge problem. The truth about cigarettes was out, their market was shrinking, and they were in trouble. These giant corporations, who were the undisputed world masters of addiction science, they needed a new product, a new delivery system for their expertise. And they found it, right in the grocery store aisle. And they didn't just invest a little, they went on a full-on conquest. Philip Morris, the company behind Marlboro, they bought Kraft and General Foods. R.J. Reynolds, the architect of Camel cigarettes, they bought Nisco. So in just a few short years, the very same minds that had spent a century perfecting chemical addiction to nicotine were now the silent owners of your dinner table. The same people who sold you cigarettes were now selling you macaroni and cheese, Oreos, and your breakfast cereal. And you have to understand, the real prize here wasn't the factories or the famous brand names. It was the intellectual property. They transferred their scientists, their chemists, their neurologists, their psychologists, an entire army of researchers whose whole careers were dedicated to one single thing: engineering addiction. They didn't just bring their money, they brought their playbook. And inside their labs, they had a name for their holy grail. They called it the bliss point. Now, this wasn't about making food taste good. It was about neuroscience. It was the exact, mathematically perfect combination of sugar, salt, and fat that would trigger the biggest possible dopamine rush in your brain. A formula designed to be so intensely rewarding that it literally bypasses your body's natural signals that are supposed to tell you, hey, I'm full, you can stop now. They developed these concepts like vanishing caloric density. It's the magic trick behind something like a cheese puff, right? It just melts on your tongue so fast that the part of your brain that's supposed to count calories gets completely fooled. It registers almost nothing. So you can just keep eating and eating because that stop signal never, ever gets sent. Your willpower never even had a chance to show up. You're not fighting a snack. You're fighting a weaponized food-like substance designed by the world's best minds in the science of making things irresistible. Okay, so the BMI is a lie, the willpower myth is a trap, and our food has been turned into a weapon against us. When you hear all that, it is really easy to feel hopeless. But the truth here isn't hopeless. It's actually liberating, because it means we've been fighting the wrong war all along. We've been using the wrong map. It is time for us to find a new compass. So the first step is to just accept the new reality, to see the battlefield for what it is. Willpower? That thing we've been told is everything. In the grand scheme of things, it's almost nothing. The real forces in charge, the things that are actually pulling the levers, are your internal hormonal environment and your external food environment. Your body is not a bank account where you just deposit and withdraw calories. It's way more complex, like a hormonal symphony. You have leptin, which is the hormone that tells your brain, hey, we're full. You have ghrelin, the hunger hormone that roars, we need to eat. And then you have insulin. Insulin is the master conductor of the whole orchestra. It's the one that decides if the energy you eat gets burned for fuel right now or if it gets locked away in your fat cells for later.
And when decades of processed food and stress and bad sleep just destroy this symphony, when the messengers get ignored and the conductor is totally broken, no amount of counting calories is ever going to fix the music.
So this is the turning point. We have to ditch the old goal. The goal isn't weight loss. That's just a symptom. The real goal is metabolic health. The goal is to heal your hormones, to lower your insulin so your body isn't being constantly ordered to store fat and is finally allowed to burn it. The goal is to have energy again, to silence those constant manufactured cravings, and to get your body back to its natural state of balance. And you don't do that by counting calories. You do it by changing the quality of the food, the information that you're giving your body. So I want to leave you with this one last thought. For your whole life, probably, you've been told that this struggle is your fault, that it's a personal failure, a weakness of character. But what if that is the final and the most twisted lie of all? What if your constant battle, your frustration, your exhaustion, what if it isn't a sign that you're broken, but a sign that you are a perfectly healthy human fighting a profoundly sick system? A system that was rigged against you from the very beginning. What if the real victory was never about a number on a scale, but about finally winning your freedom from the lie that kept you trapped in the first place?